What's going on, folks? We have a great show for you today. Comedian Eric Griffin will be joining me to talk about a few topics today, including the news that the school district of Philadelphia will require masks to be worn at least for the first 10 days of the upcoming school year, school officials announced Friday. After those 10 days, masking will become optional. We're going to dive into the intelligent science of 10 days of mandatory masking followed with do whatever you want. Fascinating. We're going to talk about and watch this CBS report that says today's children are 30% less aerobically fit than their parents were at their age, a new study found. The study points to climate change and rising temperatures adversely affecting childhood obesity as children spend less time exercising outdoors. Kids are getting fatter because of checks notes climate change. Right. And we'll of course go over the COVID-19 guidance from the CDC, which includes, reported by NPR, those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. Students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus. It's no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. Jam-packed show for you today. Before we start, let's watch that CBS clip.
A new study showing how climate change, specifically higher temperatures, is making our children more inactive and more obese. The study published in journal Temperature found today's children are 30% less aerobically fit than their parents were at their age. Fewer children are reaching the World Health Organization's recommendation of 60 minutes of exercise a day. Now, listen, it has been a lot hotter, and the weather has been crazy. But I think it also has to do with technology. You know, it's one thing not to go outside, but these kids don't go outside because they can stay inside and be on their phones, play video games, and be social without having to go outside and be social.
Show starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah, I was in it right there.
I saw you bopping behind the
scenes.
scenes.
Flowing. I'm like, okay. I'm going to get my mic and be like, all right, y'all.
I appreciate it. Without introduction, I'm here with comedian Eric Griffin today. Thanks for joining, Eric. And he's got a podcast called Riffin' with Griffin. Make sure you subscribe to that. I'm a fan.
That you've been on, so check that out.
And I've been on it as well.
Yeah.
You know, self-plug, shameless plug.
Yeah.
So I want to get into that CBS report that said, you know, I guess they're trying to say that climate change is responsible for childhood obesity.
I mean, you know what? It makes me mad because it's like you just take whatever facts you want. So there's a number of factors to things, right? There's a number of factors, and you pick one small factor, and then you make it, that's what the thing is to make this story. And it's just, it infuriates me when they do this. Like, you're so, by this logic, everyone in Arizona should be fat. You know what I'm saying? Everybody in Arizona's fat. Everybody in Las Vegas should be fat. Everybody in Africa and all kinds of places, you know what I mean? In the Sahara should be fat. Everyone in the Middle East should be fat. It's like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean?
Sahara Desert's just filled with absolute tanks.
Just fat mofos walking around because they're like, oh, I don't want to go outside and work out. I mean, come on, man. I think that there's a different way to talk about the climate change that is obviously happening, okay? So there's obviously something going on, but how it affects us and all that stuff, there's a different way to approach this.
Shout out to that guy who was like, you know, maybe the technology has something to do with it. Because even he couldn't do that report with a straight face. He's like, I got to say something. He probably risked getting fired. They probably looked at him like, yo, stick to the, you know? Dude,
and then the technology, what are you talking about? The microwave? Is that the technology you're talking about that's making it hard because people are putting like Pop-Tarts and the toaster oven? Is this the technology we're talking about? Like, they're going to talk about climate change and not talk about like what causes obesity. Is not just lack of exercise, but fork to mouth.
Right. And during the lockdowns, one thing that really annoyed me, because like you said, it's a full scale approach, right? We could list 20 things that root to this cause, where it's like, you know, is it a good idea? This is something that they were trying to censor people for talking about. Like, is it a really great idea for root level health to make kids fatter. I mean, childhood obesity spiked and they admitted the lockdown because they shut down sports, activities. Like, are you weighing out all the collateral damage, or are you just saying, let's do this and let's call everybody else a conspiracy theorist because it was a bad idea?
Yeah, I always say, that capitalism does not mix with public health and safety. Like, those two things don't always have the same agenda. And if you acknowledge that, then I feel like we could move forward in a way that we can, like, let's check these things. Let's check these boxes before we just assume things,
Right. Well, with say like unfettered capitalism, because I think competition is good. I don't think too much government intervention is good. But making $1, say like McDonald's, they're like, if we can make this crappier and we know it's worse for you, but we make more money, and that's what even like big pharma. So it's like, at what point do we need a moral capitalism where people will put down an extra $1 to make sure it's healthier? And that's happened in pharmacy, that's happened in food, where everybody's just trying to make money at any cost. And it seems like nobody cares. If they can make $1 trillion and just apologize later and pay a $20 billion fine, they'll do that in multiple industries.
And the thing is, it's like people like us, I like to think that we just want to ask questions. Like, you just want to ask questions and talk about certain things. Because what this reminds me of too? It's like when you talk about big pharma. So let's say, like, is there anyone who thinks that the pharmaceutical companies aren't out for money? Like, are there some of them that are trying to, like, you think that there's good people in there, but ultimately, is it about the bottom line? Do you believe that? Okay, if you believe that premise, then you have to question everything that has to do with big pharma. You have to question it. It's like, here's an example. Remember, like, LASIK surgery? When it first started, it was like $5,000 an eye. It was like super expensive, right? Because it was rare. So then you make, when things are rare, you could charge a lot of money for it. I feel the same way about, say, transgender surgery. It's like, this isn't a major thing. It's a rare thing. So they go like, so is it okay for, like, people? It's not transphobic to be like, hey, how much money are they making for each surgery? And how much money, because after you get this surgery, you have to be on hormones and drugs for the rest of your life.
Right.
So you're telling me that there isn't an interest in the pharmaceutical companies and some of the medical industry to be like, oh yeah, let's do this, because it's $1 million a person over a lifespan. All I'm saying is, I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's something to think about. So it lends itself to what we're talking about too, with, like, McDonald's, they want to just put food out. They don't care. In California, you've been here a long time too. Remember when they started putting the calories on the thing? That changed everything.
I know they put warning labels. Like, do you notice, like, you go into like a Starbucks or something, it says like chemicals here could cause cancer, like that. You seen those? Like, those labels are everywhere, where it's like, even things that I would consider healthy, I guess they just have to label that it may cause cancer, and it's kind of creepy.
But they used to put, what I'm talking about, like, you go into Starbucks and you see a muffin and it says 1,500 calories.
Okay.
When they started that, that's when I noticed a change. I noticed like the muffins went from, like, being a basketball size at Starbucks down to these little muffins, because they had to put the calorie count on there.
Right.
So that was like one thing that I thought, well, I guess this is making people feel like working towards being healthier, because you're now aware of what you're putting in your body.
Right.
So, but even still,
the transparency is good. So it's like, at least knowing where it's from. This is stuff they hide too. There's very lax laws on, like, they could say certain things are from certain places if it's in the factory versus actually made from there. Now, when I'm on a plane, I was eating some sort of cookie and it was like, parts genetically modified. And I'm like, this is just a cookie. Why do you got to genetically modify this? That's unnecessary.
Dude. But I mean, the thing is, like, this article is just crazy to me, because they're just talking about, like, okay, so what's funny about this? The right and the left, and I think I've told you this before, they treat global warming. The left treats global warming the way the right the right treats global warming the way the left treats obesity. Both sides want to pretend like nothing's happening. It's like, for them to say, let's blame obesity on global warming and not the sugar and the diet and the food. Every time I go to the doctor, they ask me 3 questions. What's your sleep like? Are you exercising? And what are you eating? And the diet is the most important part.
Right.
So it's like, what are we talking about, man?
Right. Yeah. I had this climate change Twitter thing go viral like last year. It got like 20, it was probably my most viral thing, like 30,000 retweets or something. They even brought me on Fox News to talk about it. And it was funny because I took a jab at I was like, both media are a little sensationalized, and they were like, "Ugh." But, basically
I don't want to hear that. Shut your mouth.
Exactly. But I had to get it in. I guess so. Basically, I started doing a lot of research because I was more, I would say, I watched the Leonardo DiCaprio films, and I was I would say a climate activist. I wasn't really doing anything, but in my head, I was doing something. And then I started researching and asking questions. And it's I would say the right doesn't really have any good talking points. They just suspect something's up. And then the left is blaming now obesity, where I started diving into certain things. Like this year, the Great Barrier Reef is actually at its highest recorded levels in decades, the highest it's ever been since they started recording. Certain glaciers, I started asking questions, and I realized when I started asking questions, they'd be like, you're a climate denier. They say anti-vaxxer, where I say, I'm not an anti-vax. It would be like if I asked you if you wanted orange juice right now, and you said no, and I called you an anti-juicer. I'm like, you don't even know.
You're anti-OJ.
Simpson or the juice? No, but I actually enjoy OJ Simpson's Twitter. I find him. Have you seen his tweets?
Yeah. He's on Twitter like he didn't kill a bitch. You know what I mean?
He's like, hello, Twitter. He goes, hello, Twitter.
He's just out here like nothing happened. So you go, okay, man, do you?
Dude, I love that guy's hilarious. But I started asking questions, and they started calling me a denier, and that was kind of fascinating to me. And I think the further it goes, it's kind of like COVID-19 and climate change. The way the left acts. It's not that people weren't getting sick. I never denied that, but it was the restrictions and the lockdowns. And, this idea that if I give Justin Trudeau, AOC, Joe Biden, let's say Elizabeth Warren, the trillions of dollars, are they going to actually scientifically shift the climate, or are they going to scam me and I'm going to feel dumb in 10 years? So these are questions that no one's having because it's such a polarized conversation that gets shut down instantly.
Yeah, it's one of those subjects. It's like abortion, actually, that, it's like when people emotions get involved, you can't start talking about certain things without people thinking, oh man, you're anti this. And I totally agree with you. And it's like, we want to talk about what actually is causing environmental change, and it all boils down to the same thing. We're talking about, we want our cars, we want the things that we use and all this kind of stuff. And once again, capitalism doesn't necessarily mix with what's best for society, what's best for the environment, what's best for the world. And once we start to recognize that, I think it's going to be a shift. But until that happens, what are we going to do?
Well, it's starting to happen now too, where say in Germany, they got away from a lot of nuclear energy, which even Elon Musk is like, that doesn't even make sense because it's not that bad. But it's like they have these ideas in their head, and then a war breaks out, and now they're begging for energy / underprepared. In California, it's the same thing. So it's this balance of now the right wing, I would say, maybe doesn't care about certain things. The left wing cares, but they're not doing the right things. So I find myself in this place where it's like, I'm not a climate denier and I consider myself an environmentalist, but I don't know if we spend $2 trillion and do these shifts, what if it completely backfires and now we're screwed?
Well, I feel like you're asking the right question. I feel like you don't have to be one or the other. It's like it. I think that it's fine. I think everyone should ask questions. It's like, if you're telling me it's like if I say, hey, help me build this fence around my apartment, around my house, but then I go, yeah, man, I'm gonna need $80,000 to build this fence, and you're just asking well, what's the materials? Why is it this much money? And then it goes to find out, it's because my cousin owns the wood place, and he's upcharging, and so it's like the method in which how we're doing it is where we're questioning, not our intentions. The problem with the left side is they question your intention, and I can't stand that. Just because I'm asking about something, it doesn't mean that I automatically jump to I hate or disagree.
Yeah.
It's about
you're a racist, a sexist,
you're a
xenophobe.
racist, sexist, you're all this stuff. Just because you go, hey, can we ask a question about such and such to find out, this sort of thing? And it's very frustrating. it's very frustrating,
Right. And before we move on to the next topic, I want to say something that we can both agree on that I talk about all the time that I don't hear much people talk about is the idea of like moral capitalism, where it's competition is good, but you have to have morality behind it. And if you're willing to make an extra dollar either way and hurt people, that's where I feel like our country is definitely going downhill. Is we have, even though we're one of the greatest countries in many ways, we have one of the worst food qualities. Like Europe has better food quality, Japan, and it's because for so long, I mean, I don't want to get into the FDA and corruption, et cetera, but people have.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I know. That's for next episode. But, people have ignored this for so long, and I guess maybe just assumed that everyone was doing the right thing. But the more I study food, I don't even believe that you have to eat like all kale or all meat. I think it's just the quality of food. Like certain elements of buns and fast food are illegal in multiple countries. If they just had like normal bread,
if
that
it was just
somewhat.
if it was just like sourdough,
Right,
how sourdough
exactly.
is made. It's like, but we've been, and then these diet people, the zealot diet people who are like, you can't eat any sugar. Don't eat any sugar. Don't eat any bread. All bread is bad. And then you just kind of go, well, is this correct?
Right. The next topic, I want to read this.
Wait. I do want to say one thing, though.
Sure.
I hate to cut you off, but it's not just the companies that are selling things, man. They're not also the problem. It's not just about the companies wanting to make an extra buck. It's about us wanting to spend an extra buck.
Right. And consuming it, buying what they're selling.
So that is another factor that you have to, it's like it's like when you think about like when they talk about farmers and it's like, you have the Latino population working on farms and this kind of stuff. And people, they're taking our jobs, that old stupid argument where then it's like, okay, well, are we going to have white boys out in the fields? Because if we are, they're gonna be charging more money per hour, and therefore a hamburger is gonna be like $75. If you want to, and what I'm saying is we have to be willing to be like, let's do it right. Let's hire Americans and let's pay extra. But that's
as a mostly white part Hispanic former farmer. So I can't figure out if I'm. I can't figure out if I'm offended by what you said or not because I check all the boxes, but. One thing I will say is I understand even labor wise, right? Because there's this argument of having like cutting certain labor things and prices will go up. For the first time ever, I feel what you're saying. Not the first time ever, but now everywhere is hiring. Like literally nobody's working anywhere after the pandemic. So that argument to me, where people there was so many people looking for jobs, now everywhere I go is hiring. So that's pretty fascinating.
I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about morality, moral capitalism, it would be like, if you're saying America first, if you're one of these types of people, then it's like, hey, let's have let's have make iPhones here, make cars here, make everything here, but then it's like, how much money do you need to make is what the question really is.
Well, also in China, they're producing a lot of our stuff and there's a lot of smoke. Like I've heard even in certain cities, they used to be way worse. There used to be way worse smog. So, there is a balance to, I think it's great to like meet in America and get things locally from farmers. But when you're producing as much stuff as we're consuming, and if we had all that plastic, all those factories here, you would have a lot of areas, the economy would be good, but definitely I think the air would be a lot worse.
But then that would be immoral for us to think, well, let's just make sure everything's good here, and then where we're getting our stuff from, it doesn't matter what happens to them.
Right. Well, China, I mean, millions of people, I think they say die a year from the air pollution because Shanghai, I mean, if you look they have apps now, you could look at the quality of air. It's like, is it Shanghai or am I thinking of a different city? Wherever a lot of the factories are is crazy bad. I mean, like it's like a whole, who wants to live there? That's the other side of the coin of like overproducing.
Yeah, man. It's like, if we could solve all the world's problems, it would, like this. Yeah. There wouldn't be any problems. Then there's just but to me, it just all boils down to, it comes down to the dollar, man.
If you vote for me and give me your money, I'll solve your problems. But make sure you join patreon.com/rich. No, it's like these politicians. One thing before we move on, because I know you'll get a kick out of this. When the Capitol thing was going on, CNN hit their like record high ratings. Like they made a fortune off of like the negative press of that. And then recently with all the Trump FBI raid, which I want to ask your opinion later, but I saw Eric Trump was like, the American people are pissed and we got more money than we've ever gotten in modern, like whenever something's bad, the other side comes and they fund who they like. So people make a killing off of like a tragedy. Yeah, I'll read this article real quick. So this one's wild. It says, Philly schools requiring masks for 10 days of the new school year. District's announcement comes a day after the CDC dropped quarantine and social distancing recommendations. All students and staff will be required to mask up from August 29th through September 9th, regardless of their COVID-19 cases in the city. The district said it's taking precaution, and I guess they said it's like 15 days to slow the spread, where after 10 days, they'll evaluate how many cases and tell people. So their strategy is 10 days to force masking and then open up the floodgates and just do what you want. What do you think of that, Science?
Well, I don't know if it has anything to do with science so much as it has to do with optics and politics. I mean, let's remember that. Like, we can't just look at like what one side or the other is doing just based off and then making an opinion on, is this scientific or not? I mean, a lot of this has to do with like we've politicized all of this. Like the fact that we politicized health is crazy. It's crazy on both sides. It's crazy that we've politicized health. And it's not till now that we're starting to see because now that people don't care about COVID, now we're starting to now they're letting the facts out. They're kind of being like, oh yeah, it is obesity and personal responsibility now, and it's all these types of things where you just kind of go, oh, you mean what it probably should have been from the beginning, right? But like the fact that they're doing that right now, I mean, a lot of that to me is just optics, and you have to remember that that's an important thing. And the court of public opinion, sadly, is powerful. And that's what, to me, that's about. So they're going like, look, let's just give them 10 days because they're all these people who are going to be like, Mike, you don't care about COVID. That's what they think because they know nothing about science. They know nothing about anything. They just know what they feel, and that's what they feel about it.
Right. You're pretty rare because, like, to my audience, like, just I don't want to put you in a box because I don't think you deserve to be in one. You're on yourself, but you're not right wing. You're not conservative, but you're certainly not one of these people that, like, when Trump got in, I watched it happen myself because in 2016, I didn't even vote for Trump. I watched people lose their minds over this guy and act like he was the worst thing ever. And in pursuit of trying to make him look bad, they just kept reaching further and further and further. And I'm like, that's pretty sloppy. That's pretty sloppy. What he did right there was actually not that bad. Like, prison reform was like a left-wing thing. He did it. They didn't give him credit. So, like, what's your take as a unicorn, as somebody that's not right-wing, that hasn't totally lost their mind over Trump? Like, what you just said is so true, the politicization. But, like, what do you think happened that people hate him so much that they literally just don't think anymore? It's crazy.
Well, I mean, it is a crazy thing, but let's just say this. Just because, like what they say, a broken clock is right 2 times a day. It's like, I'm not going to put I feel like there has to be a certain level of political experience to be president, a certain regalness that I think a president should have, and he just didn't have that, But what he did when he came in, there was a time when you were like, oh man, this guy's different, He's calling a guy fat during a debate. You know what I mean? Right. Like he was different. This whole idea of draining the swamp kind of, I think people don't want to admit it, but I think it appealed to everyone. I mean, there's a level of like political speak that was just happening all the time. And so this populist president during a time of economic woe comes in and he's like, yeah, let's get rid of all this stuff. But at the same time, man, you want to talk about the few things that you feel that he did right. I don't think he represented himself as the president in a way that you would be like, oh, this is the person we want as a leader of the free world.
But he didn't make you, like, with you, it's like you can feel that way, but so many people where I find that you're different is they were like, I don't like him, so now I'm just going to turn my brain off and just play opposite day with him, versus being like, I agree. Versus being like, listen, I don't agree with that, and that. That's whatever. I don't like the way he acts. I'm not going to vote for him, but I'm also going to keep thinking And if we happen to line up on something, that is what it is. You know, like if Joe Biden drinks water, I'm not going to starve myself because I don't want to look like him. Where I feel like people
I
did
totally
that.
agree. It's in the same way about Joe Biden too, because they're doing that on Joe Biden right now. Yeah, the guy's old. He fell off a bike. So does that mean like he's the weakest guy ever? Like it's like we can't have this weak looking president. You know, it's like, you know, there are things that he's trying to do too. I feel like that we don't give any president a chance, left or right. But I mean, when I say that, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was like, I don't know, man. It's a hard thing to just blatantly sit here and be like, I support or didn't support Trump, for instance, because the political system is so much more than just this one person. I mean, I always say if the president can't galvanize either side or reach across the aisle, I think that there's something wrong with that. I don't think that's the right person for the job, no matter who it is.
Right.
You know, I think you would want your leader to be able to be like, yo, let's do the right thing, whatever that means. Let's get least amount of damage possible, the path of least resistance. And it just feels like, you know, in the last few, especially in the second term of Obama, and then like what's going on with Trump, it's too polarizing. That's not good leadership, in my opinion.
Right. People I wasn't alive during Reagan, but from what I heard, it's like because he was like a Hollywood liberal turned conservative, he was able to get both sides to listen to him and like him. But I want to ask two questions about Trump and Biden respectively. Mm-hmm. The first one, and then I'll just do two parts and you can go on both of them. The first one is, you know, comedically, as a comedian, how funny do you think Trump is when he hits gold? And Biden, you know, although I think he's not truly fully running the show, there's other people. The ball rolls even when he gets sick and stuff. Like, do you think he's the weakest president? Because, I mean, definitely he's no Obama with the words, you know, we'll put it that way.
Bro, it's funny you talk about it. I talk about that on stage, you know. First of all, let's say this. Being a great public speaker doesn't mean you're a good person, you know. Just because you have that skill. Look, man, Hitler was the most charismatic motherfucker of all time. Okay, if you think about it, you know what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean, you know. And at the same time, because you're not a good public speaker, it doesn't mean that you can't do the job either. So that's what I'll say about that situation. Okay, yes, because sometimes when I'm listening to Biden talk, I'm like this. Come on, man.
Often,
dude. Come on, dude. Get to it. You come on. But like in terms of like funniness, no one's funnier than Trump. Trump is the funniest president we've ever had. I feel like and the reason, you know why? It's because he doesn't let himself. He doesn't follow any sort of political agenda in terms of like how you're supposed to act. Like rules of conduct, he don't care. You know, he like that thing he said about LeBron James being a female basketball player was so funny.
Right. It's like a bit. It's a good bit. Like
it's a good bit. And then and my problem with that is like, you know, as being someone so more of left moderate, but you know, left in the center, is I'm saying to the far left, if a guy like that makes a joke and it makes people go like this, you got a problem. You on the wrong side.
Well,
you know,
say like a joke like that. Obviously, if people don't like Trump, they're not going to like it. But Chappelle's an easy, obvious example. But it's like someone like him that's so well loved. I would say he's so popular. He's meant so much to this generation comedically. Like he's not really. I listen to a lot of comedy. I've gone to the Comedy Store a bunch. Like I wouldn't even consider him like he's no like Anthony Jeselnik rude or you know like doing those gotcha moments where you're like, whoa, that was too far. He doesn't really go too far. And the fact that the media is like trying to weaponize their press to make so many people hate him, like, you know, he's such an enemy to the far left now, you know, like that's crazy.
Well, I think he's just an enemy to like identity politics and people wanting to be you know, wanting to push this certain agenda of like being super sensitive about things and not really want to talk about it. I mean, if you think about it, it's like it's actually very brilliant technique. The technique is if you even mention anything about, you know, the transgender, because that's the thing he gets most upset. He makes most people upset about that. If you even talk about it, you're transphobic. You know, like immediately, you're just like you can't even ask a question. You can't even like ask a question like what I was talking about earlier. Like if I was talking to some super left people and I just brought up the subject of like, are the pharmaceutical companies, you think that they are out for the, for their money? Do you think, like, should we trust them? I feel like they would be like, oh yeah, we need some more oversight on that. And then once I would say, well, then don't you think there should be some oversight on like, children being given hormones that they're going to have to take for the rest of their life? Like right. Once you start talking about it like that, then all of a sudden you're anti-trans. And I'm like, no. I'm just saying, I'm sure there are people that are like this, but let's right. make sure we're doing this right. That's all. But you become you're transphobic if you even talk about it. I think that's a brilliant strategy. I think it's a brilliant strategy to like, let's not talk. Now we can't even talk about it. People are afraid, man. Newscasters are afraid. Doctors are afraid to say things. People that, Harvard professors who talk about science and study things are being shunned because they have scientific facts about this stuff and they're being shunned. So I think that's a serious problem.
I call them, like, when they can't handle Chappelle's jokes, I call them LGBT supremacists, because it's like black, white, straight. People joke about everything, but if you literally think you're above a joke, that's like supremacist ideology. That's like my jokey way to push back, where I'm like, if you want to be equal and be treated the same, you're bringing more attention to yourself in a bad way by rejecting equality of jokes. I want to read this real quick before I read some of the new CDC guidelines. I want to get your reaction. This is a White House. This resurfaced, and I actually had to Google it because I remember this going viral, but I was like, this is so bad that I was hoping it was kind of a parody, but it wasn't. It was from last winter. The White House this is on a White House Gov website, said, for the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm. That was put out on the White House website, like, Merry Christmas, you're dead.
Yeah. It's it's one of these things where, what I think of COVID. I think of COVID like car accidents. I think of COVID like it's like you get insurance, right? You get insurance in case you get into a car accident, so you're covered. But a lot of times you're like, man, I didn't get into a car accident. All my money just went, where's all my money? It's just gone. But you do it for peace of mind. I think that's what the COVID guidelines, and sometimes that's the methodology that they had behind it, where it's like, let's do all this stuff in the event, even though the numbers don't show that this many people are going to get COVID,
I'm going to read some of the guidelines. These are the new guidelines. I'll just go through them all if anyone sticks out to you. So this is NPR reported, the new CDC. They're backing off almost everything. Those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. Students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus, and it's no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. And I saw like a Washington Post journalist, Taylor Lorenz, was like freaking out, and a lot of people, because they're buying into this, like, we have to follow all these, and they pretty much just copied my strategy of the last 2 years. So.
Well, I'm not a scientist, okay, so I'm not even going to pretend to be one. I just play one on TV. Like the variant's different now. I mean, obviously. I mean, what little I've learned about viruses is that they tend to get weaker and weaker and weaker because they're a living organism that wants to stay alive. So if you're a virus and you're getting in people and you're killing them and it's killing you, the virus, you're gonna be like, whoa, we gotta stop that. Let's just give them a sniffles and a cough because we want to stay alive. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm being facetious, but that's like, so yes, what's happening now is not the same as like the Delta and the whatever. I mean, you didn't get COVID? Because I got COVID.
I got sick at one point, but I've never had a COVID test, actually. I've never gotten a single test.
I got it during Christmas. I was like, but I was out here in these streets, I got vaccinated. I wanted to get vaccinated because I'm 50, and I was like, okay, but I did get COVID. And at the time I felt like, it hit me hard. And I did feel at the time that if I wasn't vaccinated, but I attribute that to being 50, being out of shape, being like, and it's one of those, I attribute it more to that than not necessarily the two things don't mix, you know. I saw the things. They were like 80% of people, whatever the number was, 75, 80% of people who get COVID, get bad symptoms, die of COVID, are obese. Okay, so that was like, you know.
I'm unvaxxed, as they say. Some call it, whatever you want to call it. And I've never had a PCR test, so I'm even untested, which is pretty rare.
Because I had to get tested. Like I was on a pilot during COVID, and you know, it was craziness. Like, you know, I had to get tested 3 times a week. You know, and it's like, it was like this dog and pony show that we were doing really drove me bananas. This idea that I'm on set and I have to have a mask on, and then all of a sudden they call action and we take the masks off as if COVID's going to be like, let me watch this scene. Right. You know, like just that sort of stuff drives me crazy.
I want to read a tweet real quick because I predicted all this stuff in 2019, mandatory vaccinations, all of it before the lockdowns even happened. So here's my tweet from September 8th, 2019. I said, medical freedom's under attack in America right now. Unfortunately, most conservatives don't care, and most liberals don't realize universal health care means total government control over the health industry, which will soon include mandatory injections if both sides sleep. It's been going viral because I said that in September of 2019, like 6 months before the lockdown.
The political prophet. That's what they should call you.
Well,
the political prophet. Yeah, because you know why? Because you have a pulse. Your whole, like, you are so in line with understanding how money corrupts all. Okay? And like a lot of your premises and things that you talk about, that's the underlying thing right there. It's about money and power. Money and power.
When I was growing up, when I was 19 and 20, you know, I was part of the pill era where they tried to give me Ritalin or Adderall or whatever that was called at the time, because I was a bad kid. I played sports, which was good, but I also just fell asleep in class. I was getting detentions. I just couldn't pay attention. I say it's because I'm creative and I just was bored, and I stayed up too late gaming a lot of times, you know, till like 4 a.m. But they tried to give me pills, and my mom luckily was one of these moms that came in and said, no, nothing's wrong with my son, don't take a pill. And then in college I started actually taking Adderall, like just to like study and stuff, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is like it's like cocaine level, like 9 hour. I was like, they tried to give that to me when I was 13, so it dropped me down a rabbit hole early of like, what? Okay, I understand some people need pills. I'm not anti-pill, but big pharma, it seems like they're just like, go, give it to as many people, pump it in them. And then I see all these sort of health things. And then in 2019, they tried to push mandatory vaccination in New Jersey and California. And then I saw this all roll out. So it was I'm not going to say easy to predict, but as it's all rolling out, I'm crunching the numbers, I'm doing the data, and every step of the way, they just kept moving the goalposts. At first, they said 15 days to slow the spread. Then they said, they got all the hospital beds ready, and they said, well, the death rate's too high. And then when the death rate got lower, they said the case rate's too high. And then when the case rate got lower, they said, go get your vaccine and you don't have to do all this stuff. And then when people finally got it, they said, actually, put your mask back on. And I just watched it go all the way, and it's like, as somebody
that was the frustrating part, yeah.
Right. And that's really lost my trust. I was always skeptical, so I wasn't their target consumer at any time. But there would have been a time where I would have done more things that they said. But watching it time and time again, I'm like, wow, these people are so, shamelessly inaccurate. And that begs the question, because when I look at politics, and this goes to both parties, and this is something that a lot of, Republicans don't want to admit because their people are in on it too, but Big Pharma is the number one lobbyist in Washington. It used to be people like the cigarette industry, Now it's Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Right. And also, military industrial complex in the wars, but Big Pharma is just like giving so much money to everybody. They gave money to Trump. They gave money to Biden. There was this aide to Biden that this guy Lee Fang from The Intercept did some great reporting. She wasn't saying like what she did, because when you get into certain positions, you got to like be transparent. And when she finally was, it says she was a consultant to Pfizer. And, she's on television blinking and saying like, even like basically pushing Biden to be even more bullish on his mandate. So, they try to write it off as it's a fringe conspiracy theory, but the more research I've done my whole life, I've just realized that there is a cash incentive, and they've swallowed up a lot of people in government and media.
Yeah, I mean, it's a frightening thing, because I would still like to think that there are people, like, I think that, like, I think of the vaccine sometimes. I think of it like insulin. It's like this thing itself is good for you, helpful for you, but the people running it are the ones who we have to question. When you would think, why isn't insulin free? Like, why is anyone profiting off that? I mean, the fact that there's profit for the medical industry the way that it is crazy to me. It's like when people profit off education, when they profit off of medicine and healthcare, it's just, there's something, it feels immoral. Now, I'm not saying doctors shouldn't make a living and all that kind of stuff, because how people like take your words and extrapolate it into like some other nonsense. All I'm saying is, if there's a person that has $1 billion that has never used a scalpel or done anything, but they're just I find that to be, it's not, it just don't seem right.
And how you're feeling and how I feel about that, I agree. When I was younger, I never liked Republicans and conservatives because I felt like, everything was so greedy and all of this stuff. And it's still true. But now I started to realize there's two horses. It's like, okay, the oil companies have interest, but then also so do people on the other side. I've learned that the hard way. But, and I want to go back to what you told me on your podcast about how you found me, because, I think conservatives and Republicans could get a lot more people interested in them if they could lead by morality and really just crush and show that we do care about this stuff. And here's why it's right. Where I find like a lot of times the reason that so many kids lean left is because they see something's wrong. Like everybody's like, yeah, America's great. I'm grateful. I'm appreciative. But something doesn't seem right in the food, in the drugs. And, the left does a great job of scooping all these kids up that are like, something's wrong. This is corrupt. And they say, yep, it's corrupt. Come over here and we'll go solve it. And on that note, I know when I was on your podcast, you said I watched your videos and I was trying to, disagree. And I ended up kind of not disagreeing on a lot of things. Yeah. And can you talk about that? Because we do have political disagreements, but the fact that you're here, that you like me, I like you, that says something. And I think people could, even if they're looking to win, you have to get people to win. You can't just stay in your echo chamber, yell what everyone wants to hear, because you're not going to be popular that way.
Well, one of the things I really enjoy about you is that, knowing that you are more conservative, you take a certain time and effort to make sure that you're dotting all your I's and and your lowercase J's. You know what I mean? And that's what I appreciate. So then when you come out with one of your stories on Instagram, I watch the whole thing and I'm like, well, that's a fair point. And I think that that's what we're missing. We're missing this ability to let me listen to what this person is thinking without thinking that I'm not, what it is too, is I don't question your agenda. Like what I feel your agenda is just seeking the truth and spreading the idea that hey, question things so we can get it right. And so once I have that premise in my head about a person, and I got that from how you do it, you're very measured and level-headed, and it's just even though that I still do feel that I feel your part. I feel that you're the message sometimes gets lost in the delivery for some people. So sometimes you are delivering in a way of hey, I'm a conservative, So there's sort of there's a very small smug conservativeness that side often has, you know what I mean? In the same way, the other side of this, looking down on people, they're I'm better than you because I feel like I'm moral. It's the same kind of thing. We all have that thing in us, but overall, I think that it is important that people should have conversations with people that you may not disagree, you think you disagree with, because you might find that I'm not in disagreement with you at all. We just don't have all the information. And right. That's the point. That's the thing. What I say is what is great about what you're doing, and there needs to be more people doing it, because it's because that's. Let me say this part again. The main thing that I feel that you're doing is you're saying to the left people or people that disagree with you, no matter who they are, you're saying, hey, you may not have all the information and facts. Get that first. Be informed, and then make your opinion. So, and I think that that's what we all need to do, but it's just so hard. You could just look in comments and just see how people they overreact, they just.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if you have the answer, but I find that people treat certain things like a movie. I mean, even this FBI raid, it kind of is like a movie script where it's like every day you get new information.
Oh,
And
we're gonna get me started on that.
yeah, I want to hear your opinion, but
Yeah.
and even like politics, people kind of can treat it like a sports team. Where I get the dynamic, I guess, to be like as compassionate as I can be. The world is crazy, and then when you kind of find your clique, sometimes people run like head first into a certain side, and then it becomes like, this is my squad, and anybody who challenges it, I'm going to be upset at. And that's when it gets super lost. Like, I'll read the comment section sometimes of certain people's pages on stuff, and I'm like, okay, there's 90% of these people that they're not going to listen. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like they've kind of made it up. So like,
it's a tough thing. Well, I mean, it's tough to be. It's not necessarily easy. We are emotional creatures. It's like, it's tough to like, when somebody feels wronged, and I think that the left is really great at making people feel like that. You've been wronged. You're being persecuted and oppressed. And it's like, you just go, all right, let's hear some facts and just discuss some things. I mean,
what do you think about the FBI like raid on Trump?
Well, here's what I think. I think if you're going to raid a former president of the United States that is so polarizing, that is so like, his words, he has a base, and how powerful that base, his word is for people. It's got to be foolproof, man. Like, if you feel like the dude has serious classified information, you got to go in, get it, and immediately be like, this is what we have, this is why we did it, and here it is, and then act on it. How can you go get this stuff and he hasn't been arrested yet? Then what the hell did you do it for?
Right. Do you think sometimes they do it purposely? Because I don't want to get quote unquote too conspiratorial, but I find the timing of everything so crazy where it's like, okay, the whole lockdown thing, obviously that was like insane. And then you have this election thing. And then right before Trump's out, you have this January 6th where a bunch of his supporters go and get in trouble. And now the Biden administration has this narrative to crack down on opposition. And then they're all talking about getting away from oil, and then Russia invades and the prices go up. And then it's like, as soon as, I'm not saying things were calming down, because maybe they're never calming down, but it's like now there's this new narrative that everyone's going to talk about for an entire year. We're not able to talk about things that matter. We're not able to have conversations about solutions. Like, there's certain countries that have nicer airports than us. Like, can we rebuild? Can we be better as a country? Can our cities get better? No, now we got to talk about this raid for a year, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. Like,
or until somebody gets slapped at the Oscars, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Oh, is that Chris Rock? But do you think they purposely do this, or you think they're really just two sides that are bitter at each other, just being like childish? I don't know.
My thought process lends more itself to that. I mean, I think that if there's any conspiracy, the conspiracy is they need to do everything possible so Trump's not reelected. I think that's the common goal of the left side. It's like, we can't let this guy get back in office. We don't know what he's going to do. If he may never leave. That's the conspiracy thought process there. So their thing is like, let's do everything we can to make sure within legal means. But look, we live in a society right now that it doesn't matter what, Like let's say, like I said, I sent you facetiously by text, is like, the only thing that they need a smoking gun. There's got to be a UPS package labeled "From Trump to Putin, Nuclear Secrets." They have to have that. We found it. Here it is. Look, he was going to UPS this to Putin. Unless they have something like that, what are we talking about?
Right.
Like, is this my question is this a normal thing? Do presidents normally take boxes and boxes of classified or even unclassified stuff out of the White House when they leave? Is this a normal thing?
Right. That would be a really good report if the media actually wanted to not just piss people off, would be like weighing in on like, okay, This is what they're saying Trump did. This is what Obama did. This is what Bush did.
Or it'd be great if Obama came out and said, I mean, I took like 6 boxes myself. It was like, my personal notes and like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, Tell me what you found. I mean, again, the fact that they haven't already acted on this is, it's just like, and then look, man, Trump loves playing the political game, man. I believe that dude's high on power. He loves the fact that he can say and do whatever he wants. He knows it. He's just out there like he could just say it. They're out to get me. It's all planted and fake. And then once that doesn't take, then he's like, all right, it was unclassified. Everything was unclassified. It's cool. Then when that doesn't take, he'll say something else, and it doesn't matter.
I was talking to my lawyer friend who worked in Washington for a while, and he said a lot of these people like that are fighting with each other on Twitter, sometimes they'll be sitting right next to each other doing it, where, like I said with CNN, I'm not saying people plan things purposely, but I know even for myself, I don't do it unless I have to. But like if something really bad happens to be censorship, I lose a lot. People are good, genuinely good people, and people who like you. So they'll rally behind you. You know what I'm saying? I've seen people make more money when they got censored than not. So I try not to abuse that power because I want to keep the trust. But in politics, if there's something happens that's tragic, they're always jumping on it. So I find it just fascinating. I'm not saying they planned it. I'm not saying they want it to happen. But, I really do start to wonder with certain things where you have this January 6th. Now they have the excuse to go after everybody, and now they have record high ratings. You have this raid, on one hand, I think, they're reaching on Trump.
But it wouldn't have come out if it wasn't for him.
But also, he's making record high fundraising off it, so he's getting more money than ever. He's got political support. I'm not saying he wanted it, but they're definitely not going to waste this opportunity, and they're going to fundraise. And also, as much as I think the left is reaching, I always say, saying you're going to lock up your political opponents, like you got to do it at that point or not say it, where it's like, if you say you're going to lock up the Clintons and then you don't, they're going to want to lock you up. That's just like a fact. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's just like, there's an old saying, we said it yesterday, you come for the king, you don't miss, where it's like, he came in, he had a lot of this rhetoric, which I enjoyed. And honestly, a lot of his base is disappointed because they weren't just chanting it because they liked it. They wanted it to happen. And when it didn't happen, now you get this power. You got these people who are like, now we're going to go for him. So it's this game of like cat and mouse. And I think the American citizens are all sitting here like, hey, like, what about us? Like, we get that you're fighting. We get that like Pelosi, may or may not have plastic surgery. Like, I see all these games you guys are playing, but it definitely seems like to me that these people in both parties are more interested in either real fighting or fake fighting each other. But the lack of care about us and like doing like 2 years of,
it was like a rat beef.
Lockdown, yeah, it is a rat beef, but it's like 2 years of lockdown restrictions. Even the right, I felt like DeSantis went from here to here, say what you want about him, but it was because he had this rhetoric where he was talking to people being hit by restrictions, and they liked that. Trump wasn't really doing that. A lot of Republicans were, and I'm like, listen, this was the craziest thing I ever dealt with in my life. There's 3 months of lockdowns. You can't travel. You can't go to work. Yeah. People want to hear about this, but you had Trump being like, oh, I flew jets, like, oh, here's a jet show. You had the left acting like, just shut up and deal with it. And I'm like, does anybody actually care? Well,
And then look at Trump now. It's like you call him. He's a pharmaceutical rep now.
I call him the great vaccine salesman. People
he's out there now like, it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my, it's like, I'm like, whoa, dude, now you're this guy now?
He says it saved 50 million lives from the Spanish flu, okay? We could have had another Spanish flu on our hands. He's like, Obama, he did bad with H1N1. I'm like, honestly, I don't even remember H1N1. So the fact that
That's how good a job he did about it. Like,
as long as he didn't lock me down.
See, you want to talk about conspiracy? Man, SARS just vanished. Like, it just
Hey, we're gonna do a fact check. Right? I'm sure it was our friendly friends at the pharmaceutical industries and the World Health Organization who beat it with a stick. And I don't know.
I'm just like, we didn't like. I remember when it was like they were talking about SARS, and it was just kind of like, oh man, this is gonna be terrible. And then we didn't lock down. We didn't like, this was crazy, man. I know this is gonna be a crazy time in our lives. We're gonna look back and be like, wow, I can't believe. This is like our Vietnam for those people that like, you know what I mean? Like, even for me, I'm 50 and I haven't experienced anything like that. I remember 9/11. Like 9/11 is my thing where I'd be like, oh man, I remember where I was and I remember what this meant to the country and everything like that. And then this is the second biggest thing, I think. And it might even overtake it because of recency bias. But it's I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like it's like there are people who are like, they're out there wearing masks, and then because it was so politicized, when you see them, you're just kind of sometimes you're just kind of like, what are you doing? What are you doing that for? But at the same time, we have to just be like, let people do what they want to do.
Well, I don't know if you saw, this was a big push. I'm like losing track of time. Maybe last year is once the CDC said, hey, like there was a point where they're like, just take your mask off and do your thing. There were literally, I did a bunch of screenshots on Twitter of like blue check marks and people saying, I'm going to wear my mask, not scientifically, because I don't want to look like a Republican. So like, this is how petty some people on the left get. It's like,
Petty.
I don't want to look like a Republican, so I'm going to keep my mask on just so I don't get misconstrued. And to me, I'll laugh about it when it's funny, but it's really sad because I'm like, that's the lengths you're going to just not look like something. You
Optics.
can't. Yeah.
Well, every time if I even watch SNL and I see them wearing masks at the end of the show, I just want to set the set on fire. Like it's just
metaphorically, so I don't get taken down for violence.
Yeah.
Eric won't let it. Eric probably knows some of them. They're that petty.
No,
I know you.
I said the set. I want them to be standing off to the side and watching.
No, I'm only saying that because that's something they've done that before. Where I'm like, metaphorically, you're good. You're good.
It's just frustrating because that's when you go like, this is some crazy optics. Like, you know, you like, what are you doing this for? Like, you can't have a show that goes all episode when no one has a mask on. Then at the end, do you think we're sitting at home looking at you being like, oh, they're so safe? Wow,
no, I look at it like
our process is like bonkers to me.
I look at it like media programming because I'll watch like Trevor Noah and just like, you know, sound on or sound off. Like I was just at a hotel and I'm just flipping through and it's like, hey, I'm Trevor Noah. This is my episode. And they go to the audience and everyone in the audience is wearing a mask clapping. Like it just looks like a Black Mirror episode. Like the optics of it just look insane where it's like, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, we had our mask off and stuff and science or whatever. But like, let's close the show with this scene of, you know, it just almost feels like they're like, this is the safe thing to do. This is the that thing to do. And I'm like, yeah.
But, you know, here's my issue with it, okay? I'm not anti-mask. My thing is like, go all the way with it. If this is so dangerous, then everything should be shut down. That's my point. Like, don't tell me that it's super dangerous and like, you know, but then I can go to a restaurant and take my mask off to eat.
Right, get the whole hazmat suit. I respect people in hazmat suits.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like it's like it just makes us feel like, oh, this doesn't feel right. So then it makes you. That's when you question the government. That's when you start to like question everything, and you just go, "Is this right? What are the real facts here? Because this don't make sense to me." I walk into a restaurant with my mask on, and when I sit down, you're telling me that this thing is now I'm safer now because it's like so. You know, nobody believes that. So then it's not that you're anti-mask. You're just kind of like anti your dumb rules just because you want to make money. So you still want to make money. So then, you know, okay, then let's just be 100 with it. Just be 100.
I think they expose their intentions like as things go on because they just get so sloppy. Like, you know, it's the same thing with climate change where if you're trying to get people to believe hard in it and get your policy, maybe they just don't care because they just have power anyway. But the worst thing you could possibly do to get somebody on the fence or right wing to believe in your theory is to say that it's making kids fatter, you know, by raising the temperature like a couple degrees. Like that's but I think that especially for reasonable people, that's gonna make, like, so many people told me I found you in 2020 because once everything locked down, I started asking questions. And this was me, you know, my whole journey of it, where it's like I've learned a lot by asking questions, and the more I research and the more I ask questions, the more I realize that they are lying about a lot of stuff. And you got to ask yourself, is it incompetence? Is it ego? Is it greed? Is it low IQ? You know, is it, you know, something deeper? Yeah. It's like I weigh out all the options. It's something. Right.
You know, because I even asked you on Twitter, you know, about this Trump, you know, the raid. What's worse, that he has classified documents from the White House that he shouldn't have, or that they made it up? Like, which one is worse?
Or say he really did have what they said he had. Like, we take the worst of it. The fact that how long has he been out of office? You know, like how long has he had these documents? You waited, what, 15 months or however many months to do it? If it was that bad, was that good? A good idea? Enough. He could have mailed it.
Yeah, how long does it take to figure out? Like, the secrets are out. I mean, if he had it in his, like, just in one of his estates in a locked room, like I don't know. I mean, was he gonna put it in his library? Is he even gonna get a library? Like, the whole thing makes you just like like I think that the confidence in everything right now is down. Our confidence in government is down. Our confidence in news media is down, and our justice system is down. And if we don't do something about that, if we don't get the right types of people in office, and and by the way, you have to vote. Because my problem too, again, I've been talking about this on stage myself too, is like a lot of people, like people in comments and people on the internet. To me, if you can't tell me your congressman's name, you need to shut your mouth, because it tells me you're not involved. In any of these things that they're talking about, climate change and using fossil fuels, or helping the homeless, or even with abortion. I mean, do people know that Congress could pass a law to make abortion legal in all 50 states? But that would mean that you would have to vote for your congressman. You have to get involved. If it really means that much to you, get involved. But most people, when you say vote, all they think about is president. But voting is everything. It's judges, it's congressmen, it's the county controller, it's the sheriff, it's the governor, right. It's the mayor. It's like, all of this. That's how you have to get involved. Not on social media blaring your nonsense. It's about actually getting involved.
The whole reason I even started this channel, because I was just rapping and enjoying my life. I just saw how fake and dishonest the media was. And even to this point, it's very controlled in a sort of way where you have a few of these corporations, at the corporation, they want you to semi-play ball or completely play ball. And the headlines don't always match the reality. So that's why I started doing all this research, because I was I
love it.
Yeah. There's this funny meme I just saw. I shared it the other day. It was like that one of them has the doctor, and he says, I'm a doctor. And the other person's like, I have the greatest tools of humanity. It was basically saying like, yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I have the tools to do the research. And I'm not saying that makes you a doctor, but we really do. We've never had all this technology at our fingertips, for instance, where it's like when the data starts coming out and these news reports going out, if you want to take 2 hours, you could read left wing, right wing, all of it, the data, with the World Health Organization saying, with Fauci saying, and then try to figure out what's going on. It takes a long time, but I'm fascinated by it, because I was like, wow,
Well, the funny thing about that is like, that's what I think the average person thinks that their politicians are doing for them. I think that it's like, I'm going to vote you into office and you're going to have my best interest at heart. That's what I think, where I came from when I was a kid, you thought that's what the political system was. But right. Now with a 24-hour news cycle and those people, the news also has to make money. It's a whole different thought process now.
Before we leave, you don't have to answer this too, because sometimes it could be private. But put like this November, I'm a registered Republican. I'm not like a shill, and I'm not, it's not like I'm just gonna bow down to whoever it is. I speak the truth, but I'm voting all Republican. I live in Orange County. We are definitely more conservative in politics than LA. And we have different DA, different even like, city rules. And, I find where I moved is pretty clean and nice and safe, which is not what I experienced. And, there are nice liberal areas in the country somewhere, but LA is,
they're all gated communities.
Right. So are you going to be voting Democrat, or are you making a move like Elon to go Republican for the first time? You don't have to answer, but I'm just curious.
I'm gonna I'm not gonna be a cardboard cutout. I mean, it's like, if it means, because here's what I think: if you are a registered Republican, then that means, to me, does that mean that all your votes should go Republican?
Well, the reason I register, because in certain states too, they won't allow you to vote in certain elections, based on, like, if you vote independent or you register independent in certain areas, they won't let you vote in the primaries in certain states. So so strategically,
you just pick one.
But to me, personally, as somebody that I could see both sides, I'm not stubborn. The whole mindset and agenda of the left right now, I think they're being very foolish when it comes like how to run a city and how to stop crime, how to, make it easier on small businesses and stuff. I feel like they're on the wrong side of most issues. And I would say, to compliment California, to prove that I'm not just one-sided, I like that raw milk is legal. Like, I could go down to the store and buy raw milk. That there's a lot of states where that's not legal. Most states, actually, you can't buy it in stores. So like that, possibly marijuana. Like, there's things that I think that they've done
possibly
correctly.
Marijuana?
Well, I guess my point is when they legalize it, they restrict it, tax it, and they do all this. Like, they have certain financial interests. So there's a few power players who get all the real estate.
That's what I'm saying.
Same thing with gambling. They're about to legalize gambling possibly. And
in California?
In California, DraftKings and FanDuel are going to get a stake, and the Indians will, the Native American things. But it's not going to be an open, like every business can't get in. I think it's only DraftKings, FanDuel's, and the Indians. So it's like there's certain games being played even when they legalize stuff. So that's my take on that.
I agree. Well, I think I would like to be like, because I couldn't say that outright right now. I couldn't say I register a Democrat, but I'm not going to say I'm going to vote all Democrat. I'm not going to say that because I'm with you on a lot of things. Like it's like who are those people? What's the one guy? They're trying to start a third party.
Andrew Yang, I think. Yeah,
Yang. I'm interested to see what that's all about. I mean, because I kind of feel like I just feel like if you have to register and then all of a sudden I have to agree with everything that my side says, I'm not for that. I'm just not. You know what I mean? I can't. So I'm gonna be like, if there's a Republican out there saying some stuff that I like, well then there it is. Like when Arnold was the governor of California, I thought he did a pretty good job. You know what I mean?
Elon pulled a full I'm voting Republican, and that's pretty wild. I would consider him left wing, and I would consider him like one of the left wingers that I actually think is doing something. Like, all his businesses and stuff, I'm like, oh, he's making cars, producing things. Like, that was a pretty wild move to have someone that big in technology.
I don't think it's that wild, because I bet you the next step for Elon is he's going to run for office, because Trump did the same thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, Trump was a Democrat, man. Don't you remember how liberal he was? He was a Democrat for many years, talking all that stuff, and then all of a sudden he saw. Oh, you know what? Actually, this is the party you can actually go. You could actually do stuff in, and you could become something in this party because the base is so like, we love you no matter what.
In LA, I'm not too concerned with what goes on there because honestly, I lived in LA for 7 years. I don't even go there anymore. I'm kind of in my bubble, and I just feel like they run the city so terribly that I'm not interested at this moment.
It's tough right now.
Yeah, there's a guy, he's actually running as a Democrat. His name is Rick Caruso.
Yeah.
If I was there, I'd probably vote for him because I know, they said he used to be a Republican. That's like the big smear on him, but he owns the Grove, which is really nice, and he owns a lot of property. So I think he's coming from this angle of like, I can't make money in this city because everything's going to shit. So I think that he will be an actual hard-nosed Democrat and like really turn it around. So that's my guess.
You know what's weird? I'm glad you just said that because you made me think of something. A lot of times the left and the right, they want the same thing. They just go about it in a different way. It's like or the intention is lost because like if the left is like, hey, we want to make sure everybody's taken care of, and then the right is like, well, we got to make money to take care of everybody, so we got to do these certain things, and then the end result is going to be everybody's happy, but they're just fighting on the way to this.
It's also an ideological way of solving it. Like for homeless, for example, like I remember in Echo Park when the cops tried to clean up the park, and a bunch of like far left activists said, no, don't do that, you're hurting these people. So the right sees it as like, these parks are so bad, there's so many like people here that are unsafe that it's actually bad for everybody to have all this here because it's dirty, it's disgusting, it's unsafe, people are getting stabbed and robbed, and to protect our children we need to clean this up. And then the left will be like, well, I want that because I just feel bad. And it's like,
right.
It's like, although people do want the same thing, it's like, in my perspective, I have a plan that I think would help homelessness, help them, but help them get off the streets. I don't think left wingers would allow me to enact it because they just can't.
Exactly.
But they can't budge on the where it's like you don't want to just leave them there because they're dying every day on the streets of drugs, and it's not good. But I
totally agree with you. We're on the same page with that. I mean, I always say I think that I think that there should be a liberal president and then a conservative Congress, because to be like, you can't spend that much money on that. You know what I mean? Like, they should work together. They need to go back to the old days where whoever won the president, whoever lost became vice president, forcing the two sides to work together.
It's interesting. I think Caruso has a real shot at turning the city around, but like I said, I don't, and this is the beautiful part about the country. People in Kansas, and I've heard you talk about it with abortion, where it's like literally, it's not illegal. It's just going back to the states. So it's like if you feel so strongly about something, you can move there. Like my county, although we are under certain state rules, like I literally just don't care what happens in Los Angeles. I mean, I root for my friends and stuff there, but like I'm not even joking, dude. You can't pay. If someone paid me $5,000, I wouldn't even go. Like that's how disgusting I think the city has become. So if people want to keep voting that in, like I don't even care. It's same with like certain policies in like other states. It's like it's not my state.
But there's like what do you call that? As a symbiotic. You can't have like we can't not care about one part of something that's connected because it will come everywhere.
Right.
Like Orange County's not a bubble. Whatever happens.
Well, I know
the crime. Affect.
Right. That's why people got to vote Republican and stop being brainwashed into thinking it's like something else. Because, the shitty politics of LA and the homelessness and the crime is leaking into my county. I would be for building a wall around Orange County, to keep, because it's like, God. Yeah, I don't
down that wall.
I'm fine with building a wall around the county because no, it is true. A lot of the problems of LA are leaking, but that's why I'm shocked. Like people like Elon, I think like he realized like, okay, this is not good. I got to go somewhere else. I think it was a lot of money too because Texas has a lot of like less strict laws, and California has a small business or a big business. It's crazy here.
You don't become the richest man in the world without caring about making money.
Right.
Okay. So I don't whatever he wants to say about being a good person or whatever it is like that, you still sell $100,000 car. Okay. So I don't he is a businessman. I don't care what he gives and all that. He could easily sell that $100,000 car for 30. So instead of making $300 billion, he would only have made 100. So what I'm saying is like he cares about money, making money, and doing things. He's just like Big Pharma. And I know people that live in Texas. They're not everybody in Texas is not happy that he comes there because what he does is they build their factory and then they shut it down anyway. And then people are out of work and out of I was just in Austin and a native there was just really going in on him and I was like, what? Why? Where is this coming from? I thought he was helping this at the county and whatever. It's like it's not always true.
Right. Some people don't like it for multiple reasons, but as someone, I appreciate you coming. Someone that I consider common sense. Like I listen to your podcast. I like it. I like, even I know we disagree on some things, but I find your
I don't even know if we do actually. I don't know if we say that, but I don't know if we disagree.
We could probably debate for hours and come to the same conclusion. But
yeah,
I know you're not responsible, but I do agree. I want them to clean up LA, and I think it's going to be more honestly than just a mayor or something. But out of those two, I think Rick Caruso, like I think he is ready to actually crack down a little. I don't even know who the other person is, but I pray that you and other people turn it around there because I think it's it's getting so rough there, and it is affecting my county. I would let you in my wall. I'm just being honest. If I built a wall around Orange County, I'd let you in. Obviously.
What are you gonna be like Syria? You're gonna make all your toothpaste and everything you make, and then we're gonna. But we're gonna put sanctions on Orange County.
I'd like to be like Cuba. Everyone drives old cars, because there's everything. Like we're on flip phones, or because we can't because Apple hates us.
You have your own cigars. Get those Orange County cigars, y'all. Man.
Yeah, I wanted to say Riffin with Griffin. Check out his podcast, folks. Anybody that liked his stuff, and you'll like it. He's funny, and he talks about different topics, but always really making good points. And especially if you're used to, I upset a lot of people here sometimes because I challenge the norm. If you want to hear different perspectives that you're not used to hearing, he definitely will, hit a topic and kind of tell both sides what they don't want to hear. And I think he's great at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's important. And it's super important. And I just want to say to everybody, just engage with people that you don't necessarily agree with to find out where they're coming from. Then you can decide, now I don't agree with this person and why. But we got to listen to each other to find out what we don't know. And also, like I said, find out why this other person feels the way they feel. I think that's super important.
Right. And that's definitely the most effective way to actually get your point across. Like at the end of the day, if you want to win elections or have a bigger thing and get like peace and, you know, reach a point where people aren't so divided and everyone's not so tense, you got to really sell what you're saying. And to do that, you have to be honest. It has to be real, and you have to be nice about it. Real quick, before we leave, I actually, because like, you know, Kathy Griffin and the right wing are fighting all the time on Twitter, and I actually got her to say something nice to me, even though I disagree with her politics. Everyone's just being so rude to her, right? Just like, Kathy, you suck, and she's being rude to them.
Ever since the head, she hasn't survived.
Oh my God, that was bad optics. Speaking of optics,
hasn't survived that, man.
Speaking of optics, that was the worst.
That was bad.
It's pretty funny in a messed up way. But I said to her, I said, Kathy, I'm a former fan here. I said, you know, I said,
like that?
I said,
Oh,
former fan. No, I said, it's honest. I said, former fan. I said, she thought someone was Tucker Carlson's son. I said, Kathy, that's not actually Tucker Carlson's son. He's joking. But then I said, you know, you're never going to be happy just fighting right-wingers all the time. I said, focus on yourself and heal yourself. God bless. And she said back to me, blessings, where I told her the truth about what I said. But I really believe that. Like, I don't feel good fighting with Kathy Griffin. I actually feel terrible. I would feel terrible. I'm like, Kathy, as someone that actually knows that you have so much potential and you're a great person inside, you have to heal yourself, because it's like a lot of broken people are out there just fighting with the left-wing version of themselves. And it's like, and it's like, I don't like that. And I know deep down inside, you're not having fun. This can't be fun with you pick a fight with Marjorie Taylor Greene on Twitter. Like, you can't be enjoying that.
Yeah,
it's rough.
Yeah, I don't even think Marjorie Taylor Greene enjoys Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know what I mean?
She might. She seems almost like she does enjoy the fight, though. I don't know how, but
for sure. Let's like.
I met her and she told me she's liked my videos for years. I was like, nice.
Oh wow! Here's the big brother I would like to see: Ann Coulter, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, Kathy Griffin. Get them all.
Oh my
in,
gosh!
You know what I mean? Get them all in Big Brother to see like how they would get along. You know what happened that Allison girl from OVN or whatever that is, like get all these people to be like live in a house and like see, you know, it's like a political Big Brother fight. I would love to see that.
I'm trying to get Kathy on my stream. I'm going to email her and be totally honest, to be like, hey, we don't agree on a lot, but I want to actually talk to her for 20 minutes and not even mention politics, just to like humanize both sides. Be like, we're both people. Even with you, like when we talk about topics, we could debate, but like I could also probably laugh hysterically with you and we could crack each other up for like 3 hours. So it's like we're doing it on the show, but with Kathy, I want to be like, I want to also break her out of the mindset where it's like everyone's fighting all the time. Like, who are you as a person? Like, what do you enjoy? Like, what are your hobbies? And start it like that, and then we could get into the debates, but at least have a good 20 minutes of being like, okay, we're really not that different when you take away like the political thing. But now
have you seen What Is a Woman?
No. Oh, the Matt Walsh one?
Matt Walsh documentary.
I've seen parts, but not the whole thing. You saw it?
Yeah, I saw the whole thing. That sucker is fascinating. It's fascinating to watch. The most fascinating part about it is watching him interact with people that do not want to budge. It's like political speak, you know? It's like political speak of like, you know, you just go, wow, it's actually scary. It's scary that people, you know, are like that. You know, then it's like, how can we get anything done if people are not going to have an honest communication? But if you get a chance to watch it, you should, because it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
I want to, because I saw part of it. I saw like the 6-minute interview of the one guy where, you know, Matt Walsh said, I want to get to the truth. And he was like, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, the truth. And he's like, that wording scares me. And I'm like, oh my god.
That's what they do. Like, dude, that's what I'm saying. Oh my god, that's what I'm talking about right there, man. When the guy goes like, you know, when this is what they go, you know, you're the way you're asking this question is transphobic and problematic. That is like, they invoke that anytime you start talking about stuff. That's invoked like this. Oh, it's problematic and troublesome. It's like, really? I can't discuss this and get this, you know. But again, sometimes the message gets lost in the delivery, man. The message gets lost in the delivery. And he does have a way about himself, but I thought he was really toned down. That's what I thought too. I thought Matt Walsh toned himself down because he was like, I know they're going to think I'm being a dick.
Right.
So let me turn the dick meter down. And they still like, so that's what I'm saying. It's like, I do recommend it for people. No matter what your political beliefs are, you got to watch these types of things to see how people interact. And it's
right. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to give them some more business. I've been meaning to. I'm just like, yeah. Appreciate you. And Riffing with Griffin, guys. Check it out and subscribe to his podcast and show him some love. Appreciate you.